Hey, Foot Clan, want an unfair advantage to dominate your fantasy football league? Look no further and download SquadQL, the only mobile app you need to crush friends and rivals. SquadQL recommends the best starting lineups for each week based on your starters, your bench players, and the free agent pool. SquadQL provides waiver and trade recommendations too. Go to SquadQL.com to download SquadQL for free. SquadQL is brought to you by the creators of RotoQL.
We also want to remind you about the Ultimate DFS Pass. If you're going to play on FanDuel DraftKings Draft this weekend and you want an edge, check out the Ultimate DFS Pass. Some of the best experts in the industry, picks, rankings, and more. UltimateDFSPass.com.
Hey, this is Allen Robinson, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from Draft.com Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome in. So excited to be with you this morning. The Fantasy Footballers. Jason Moore is here.
Yeah, I am here. That is correct.
Wow.
Well, I'm just, look, in preparation for the show.
Yeah.
I'm already, the show's rolling. I'm still doing research. Digging in deep because I want,
That's how they normally do it on the tests at school. You want to be doing your study right before the test.
But I'm browsing here the game log of 2015 for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Dude was great. He had 3 games that whole year where he didn't throw multiple touchdowns, and in one of those, he threw 300 yards.
This was Decker and Marshall?
Yeah.
And Enunwa.
Okay.
Well, I'm thinking Godwin, D-Jax, O.J. Howard, Mike Evans.
I was considering how difficult I find it mentally to rank Ryan Fitzpatrick because of our upcoming quick question. And no longer.
I thought you were going to say because of beard bias, which is one of the reasons I have a hard time working with Mike.
I can't trust
I grew up in an environment where we didn't tolerate men with beards.
No,
not of that length.
No, that's a good environment, Andy.
Yeah, right. Mike is here.
Hey!
Are you having any deep contemplations on Ryan Fitzpatrick this morning? Oh, that's his beard.
My goodness,
that's his beard rubbing into
I don't know if that's going to come across on the audio podcast.
Just turn it up.
It was
crank it.
It was Mike saying no with his beard.
I got beard kisses for my microphone.
We have a great show today. Fantasy forecast
kisses.
Starts of the week. Jason's boom boom kicker. We did a Reddit AMA yesterday, and one of the first questions was, "Look, why is your audio quality so great?" And then
I rub my beard.
It's so that we can capture the beard. That's you have to cover your bases. All right, quick question for week 3. Who's been the hardest player for you to rank? Okay, you can go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, use the Start Sit tool, click on the rankings, see who we have ranked for week 3. Who's been the hardest player for you to rank?
Oh, certainly not Ryan Fitzpatrick.
He's moving up.
For me,
Number 1.
I would say it is Carson Wentz. I am not afraid. I said this yesterday. I'm not afraid of him coming back, but I am a little worried about the weapons. I mean, whenever your team goes out and signs Jordan Matthews, you've got an issue.
Hey,
Darren Sproles might not play, which is a great pass catching running back. So if it's just Aguilar, and if Aguilar goes to the outside because of Jordan Matthews. There's just slight concern here, but the matchup is good. Carson Wentz is good, and so I'm pretty confident in him. But there's a smidge of worry.
Just with the first game back.
Yeah, first game back.
I will jump in here.
No Alshon.
The hardest player for me to rank: New England Patriots running back Rex Burkhead, Rex Birkenstocks, Rex Goathead. What do we do?
Rex Benchhead.
What do we do with him? Because week 1. He came out, played 50% of New England snaps at the running back position, had 21 opportunities against the Houston Texans. Then he had the weird injury week. He was in the concussion protocol. What was happening? He came out. He actually started the game and then vanished because the New England Patriots were in such a negative game script that everything went in the favor of James White. And so now what do you do? because this is a great matchup for the Patriots. They should have a nice lead over the Detroit Lions this weekend.
Sony Michel just got back in.
Right.
And made his first appearance last week. I'm sure that was part of what ate into Rex Burkhead. And now that, presumably he's even more healthy and could take more volume.
It's a problem. There's too many variables for my confidence. Look, you probably might have to start it if you are in a situation where there are a number of injured running backs. There are people that maybe you don't have confidence in. But let's put it to the test, right? I mean, we all have Burkhead ranked outside the top 24. We have him in the 30 range this week, which is, that's Peyton Barber, Isaiah Crowell range.
Yeah,
Right.
I have him back-to-back with Kerryon Johnson, and so that should show, Kerryon's the third on a depth chart and is not a guy that you want to start yet.
I would start Burkhead over Kerryon.
I would too.
He is ahead in my rankings by one.
Mostly because I think New England's going to be ahead in this game.
That's why it's hard to rank
and Theo Riddick's going to go out there and ruin Jason's life.
Yeah, it's
I
true.
mean, that's what he does. I'm going to stick with the Patriots. The hardest guy for me to rank this week, maybe the rest of the season, is going to be Chris Hogan. Now, he had 1 reception in week 1. He had 3 last week. Now, 2 of them were touchdowns. But 4 receptions on the year is not what we expected from Chris Hogan going into week 3. He's not been the go-to target monster that we hoped for. And, look, I have him lower than the other 2 guys in this office. I have him at 22 this week against Detroit. Jason's up at 15. Mike, you got him at 18. I just have a problem with Hogan right now. And, look, I would try to get rid of him. That's what I would do because – coming off a 2-touchdown week, Edelman's going to be back. Yes, Gordon may not play this week or he may be very limited, and it's going to take time for Gordon to get involved from a target and snap count percentage standpoint. But he's still going to be there, and he's still going to be involved. So when you talk about all the different pieces, now's the time that I'd try to get rid of Chris Hogan. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I get your argument for the arrow trending down on Chris Hogan as the season progresses with Gordon and Edelman coming back. I am not worried about, I've got him as my wide receiver 15 this week,
right.
So I expect a big week from Hogan. So if you're not able to capitalize on his 5-target, 3-reception, multi-touchdown game this past week, I think you might have a great opportunity next week. If he puts up another good game in Detroit, which I think he will, you'll be able to get more and have more people interested in Chris Hogan.
Yeah, Hogan is a bit baffling, similar to Burkhead, because we're only 2 games in, very small sample, and it's hard to make any conclusions from that Jacksonville game. No one on the Patriots offense was lighting things up. Rob Gronkowski got completely shut down. James White led the team in targets. I mean, it's hard to really glean anything from that data.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and it normally takes New England a little bit of time on both sides of the ball to figure out their rhythm and what they're doing.
Well, they're so old.
It's just they have to ease into it.
Yeah. It takes plants a really long time to grow.
But is this true?
I was speaking about the plant man. He's got to get the leaves out, got to get those beams of light. Photosynthesis.
Thank you, Mike.
Chloroform.
Bill Nye.
More like borophyll.
Twitter at the FF Ballers. You can follow Mike's science takes over there.
They're hot.
Yeah, very, very impressive. TheFantasyFootballers.com is the website. I mentioned it earlier. And we want to invite you to join thefoot.com, our fantasy football community. Look, we're an independent podcast. We always have been, 600-plus episodes. We plan to stay that way. It gives us the unique opportunity to iterate and improve and build this show around you, right? It's built around the Foot Clan. It's built around helping you win your league, enjoy your league more. At the end of the day, we want you to make us part of your fantasy football experience, and we hope to add value every single day so that you enjoy fantasy football more. And that means part of that's winning, part of that's how you play, part of that's just thinking and talking about it. This show, a lot of people don't know this if you're new. This show was born out of the 3 of us at our previous job almost 10 plus years ago. Every day at lunch we would go out and torture the programmers by talking fantasy football all lunch long.
Oh, I felt so bad, but I couldn't stop because I love fantasy football so much.
Yeah, so I mean, it was born out of that passion of loving the game, and that's where this show came from. So we invite you to join our community filled with thousands of people that are just like us. Sit down at the table with us every day. We really appreciate all the support from everybody else.
Yeah, and that's why we build special tools for the Foot Clan. We've got, the premium projections, the flex rankings, the consistency charts, all of those tools available.
And an extra episode where we just answer your questions, any question that you have. So let's get into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
And that was jointhefoot.com. That's how you can come and join the community. All right, Steve Wilks, Cardinals head coach, said Larry Fitzgerald is going to play in Week 3 against Chicago. He's at home. Jason, I read some of your advice on Larry Fitzgerald yesterday, and it was all based around if he's at home, you're okay starting him.
Yeah,
do you feel that way this week against a good Chicago defense?
I do. I think that the Chicago defense is good. The pass rush is going to be good. But Larry is last year, he went to the Los Angeles Rams and put up 3 for 30. Okay, last season when he had 100 receptions and 1,000 yards, he still had a bad game in Los Angeles. I realize this offense looks worse, but I think you can play Larry Fitzgerald at home in front of this crowd against the Bears. For sure. If you're in a standard league, I'm less excited about it because touchdowns seem like they will be lower than the last several years for Larry Fitzgerald, or non-existent. But if you're in a PPR league, half PPR, Larry's fine.
Melvin Gordon's practicing in full. Case Keenum was not practicing Wednesday. Precautionary do not practice, and he's expected to practice Thursday and play Sunday in Baltimore. A reminder, on Fridays we do in and out, and we give you our judgment call on who's going to play and who's not going to play. Evan Engram was limited by an ankle injury on Wednesday. We'll cover that tomorrow. Gio limited in Wednesday's practice. That's interesting because
they're just saving him up.
The workload for Gio and Walton, I'm telling you, it's going to be more split than you think. I do not think that Gio Bernard is going to carry the bona fide load in this game.
I do.
Yeah, I do as well.
I get it. That's fine. But I'm just giving you my take on that. Mike McCarthy said Aaron Jones is going to play. He's active. He's going to play behind Jamal Williams and Ty Montgomery. That was McCarthy's quote. He said, Jamal and Ty have played good football. I know what Aaron gives us, but his role will be secondary. Let's debate this because I am of the conviction.
He's taking victory laps already.
He needs to do it now.
He hasn't taken a single snap.
He needs to do it now. Jason needs to take any pre-victory lap he can because he's going to end up wrong here.
I'm going to end up right. I'm without a doubt going to end up right this week and next week. If you want to talk long-term and say...
But that's how we've talked about Aaron Jones is long-term.
No, we were talking yesterday on the show about Aaron Jones is coming back, and I said... Look, Aaron Jones is probably their best running back as far as just talent.
You can remove the word probably from that sentence.
He's the best running back.
Thank you.
But Mike McCarthy is not good. It doesn't matter because Jamal Williams is going to be the one that Mike McCarthy has on the field, especially right now while Aaron Rodgers is still dealing with the knee injury and you need your best pass blocker there. And then to have him come out and say that Aaron Jones, who's a good player and he likes, will be secondary, why would we not believe that?
Well, it's not about believing it or not believing it. It's just common sense. You don't need to say it. A guy's coming off a suspension. 2 guys have played 2 games. The coach is not going to say, well, Aaron Jones is going to walk into a starting role. He never even said that in the preseason about Aaron Jones. I think what Mike and I believe is what happens in football is the best player plays, and when the poop hits the fan, you just put your best players out there to score points. That's all you do.
If only that were always true, but it's not. Kenyon Drake would be a workhorse.
It's not all. There's certainly instances where it is not always true, but I believe for the Packers there will be only so much time they can watch Jamal Williams and then watch Aaron Jones get sprinkled in and make an impact.
He averaged
chunk plays.
He averaged 5.5 yards
he was unbelievable.
Per carry last year. Jamal Williams, his goal list is 3.9. I mean, every morning he wakes up, he says, I hope I can get to 3.9. That's a big difference.
I believe he can do it, though.
Yeah, well, you're in his corner, and I get it. I think it'll take 2 weeks. So That leaves you
2 weeks.
3/4 of a season to. I'm buying Aaron Jones. I made trade offers for Aaron Jones.
I like it.
That's where I'm at.
Long term.
Certainly has the highest ceiling.
Not this week.
If he gets the role, I mean, I like Aaron Jones. I just don't believe he will get that role that you guys believe.
I believe it's a 50-50 shot. He has more fantasy points than the other two this week.
Ooh,
on one play.
Man.
Because that's all it takes.
I know you won't water bet on a 50-50, but
no, I won't. But I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, we'll
Jarvis Landry listed questionable for tonight's game. He's expected to play. If you watched Hard Knocks and you listened to him talk about playing
contagious.
Injured, I don't think he's going to miss.
He better not.
No.
He doesn't have a choice.
If he misses, everyone else is going to start missing games.
Because it's
contagious.
It's contagious. Anything else you guys want to cover?
That
in
is
the news?
rough. That is rough to now be publicly known for that.
Yeah.
For that speech, which
you better not
fine.
miss a game.
It's just when you take that stance.
If you're marked as a Q,
play.
if you're marked as a Q, you better play.
Right. Yep.
That's good for fantasy owners, right? You're starting him tonight.
Yes.
All right, let's move on.
Fantasy Forecast.
We've got your Thursday night reminder. If you are playing Jarvis Landry tonight, take him out of your flex position, slot him right into that wide receiver position. Don't find yourself backed into a corner on Sunday with some sort of freak fluke injury.
Absolutely. And today's game is the type of game that has flex players. Carlos Hyde, Bilal Powell, Isaiah Crowell. Those are players that you probably have in your flex. Get them out, put them in your running back or wide receiver if it's a wide receiver.
Someone had asked me on Twitter when I was talking about, I don't remember which player, Hyde or someone he's flex worthy this week. And they're saying, Mike, why are you telling people to put him in your flex? And I'm saying, no. I'm speaking of him as a flex play, as in he is the third option for your team. So if you're starting him, though, he needs to go into the running back position.
Yeah.
All right, the Saints. They travel to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Falcons are 3-point favorites. Both teams are 1-1. And this game has a 53-point over-under. Now, the interesting thing is last year, when both of these teams played, both the games hit the under. They were not the fantasy explosions you expected. They were defensive battles. Atlanta won 20-17. New Orleans won 23-13. Doesn't mean that's going to take place this year. Obviously, Vegas has it as a high-scoring affair. But it's been interesting this season. The Saints have not found it yet.
Right.
They've not been the team you expected them to be. Now, they came back to win against the Browns, but they were being dominated most of that game. And one of the more interesting facts so far in this season, Saints are dead last in the league in rushing yards per game. They're normally the league leader by a lot. Now, no Mark Engram. They've been playing from behind. I mean, so maybe that's why. But right now, I don't think the Saints are going to win this game.
I was going to ask you, because I know, Andy, to give you a little toot-toot, you are usually very above average when it comes to calling the game lines. And so I was curious your take, because I had a hard time here, deciding. You've got the Falcons at home, but the Saints have to get both these teams really need the victory in conference. One thing that's interesting about you look at last year, these were hopeful barn burners and it didn't work out. But if you think about it, last year both of these defenses were far better than the expectation going into the season. The Saints defense was great. The Falcons defense was very good. And now you have the Falcons who have lost two key pieces from their defense, and the Saints, like you just said, don't have it together. So I'm still believing that this will be a high-scoring. I took the over on this game, and I want all the pieces on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, since week 12 of last year, the Saints have allowed an average of 29.8 fantasy points per game to wide receivers. That's dead last in the NFL, and Julio averages 90 yards a game against the Saints. You're not doubting the Julio start, but can you flex a guy like Mohamed Sanu? Can you play a guy like Austin Hooper?
Man, I would rather not. I guess when I say fire up all the pieces, I'm speaking of, all the normal Tevin Coleman. I'm totally fine with Matt Ryan, Breeze, Kamara, Michael Thomas, all of the main guys. If there was one player I was going to try to take a shot on, it would probably be Calvin Ridley.
Interesting. Calvin
over Sanu. What do you guys think about that?
I wouldn't myself, but I get it. More explosive, more exciting.
4 for 64 with a touchdown this past weekend.
Yeah, it was a good performance for the rookie.
He did play on 55% of the snaps. 55! Which was actually down from week 1. Man.
Yeah, Sanu hasn't had 20 yards yet. I mean, I know it's only 2 games, but,
sure,
18 yards, 19 yards, I don't think I can take that leap to make him a starter.
Ted Ginn or
Ted Ginn.
Okay.
I really like Ted Ginn in this matchup.
So Tevin Coleman, this is interesting. Graham Barfield on Twitter tweeted this out. He's played 5 career games now where Devonta Freeman has missed or played less than 5% of the snaps. Here's his averages in those games.
Good.
Good averages?
Yes.
Yeah, 70% snap rate, 19.8 touches per game.
Yeah.
95 yards from scrimmage, almost 16 fantasy points.
Yeah.
You are locked and loaded starting Tevin Coleman.
100.
The real question is whether as a fantasy owner you'd go try to grab him. Would you trade a season-long piece to get Tevin Coleman because you worry about Devonta Freeman's availability season-long? Because let's say Freeman, look, he's not going to play this week most likely. He could miss more time. But even if he comes back, this is a residual injury. So does Tevin Coleman's snap counts, are they consistent to the point where you're like, man, this guy's fine to play every week, even with Freeman?
Yeah, I would not doubt it. I have tried to make some offers for Freeman. It's really – or for Tevin Coleman. It's very difficult because there's a real tier break between the guys that truly are season-long starters and then the guys that maybe – take Carlos Hyde, right? You try to trade Carlos Hyde for Tevin Coleman. Most people still don't really fully believe that Carlos Hyde will be a season-long starter.
That's an interesting trade right there.
But
that one's very interesting.
I would absolutely trade away Carlos Hyde to receive Tevin Coleman.
Would you trade away Marshawn Lynch to get Tevin Coleman?
I think so. I think that Marshawn's average games compared to Tevin Coleman's games once Freeman is back won't be that far off. So if I can capitalize on 2 or 3 or maybe 4 huge games in the meantime, I would do it.
Mike, would you rather have Chris Thompson or Tevin Coleman?
That's a really good question. I
would rather have Chris Thompson.
Yeah, I lean Thompson.
All right, before we get to the rest,
just
you
real
have
quick.
some?
Yeah, just are you guys wanting to? Let's say you're in a league, 12-team, 6 bench spots. So a little bit deeper. Are you stashing Ito Smith, Falcons running back?
I'm not.
Okay.
No.
I mean, he was 9 for 46.
No.
Okay.
No.
Look, if
Freeman give me more news about Freeman, yeah.
Yeah, if Freeman ends up...
Well, that's the thing, is you would have to grab him before the news breaks.
I don't think it's worth it.
Okay.
I'd rather have Eckler, for example.
Yes.
Someone like that.
Sure.
Before we get into the rest of the matchups, we got starts of the week coming up. I'm excited about that. Let's thank SeatGeek for sponsoring today's show. We all know this reality. Getting tickets online can be far too complicated. Sometimes the process, making sure that they're verifiable tickets, that you're not getting scammed. Look, there are hundreds of different sites out there, but you can trust SeatGeek, and that's the message here. By searching multiple ticket sites and grading every ticket based on value, they help you immediately identify the best seats that fit your budget, and everything's fully guaranteed. So you can, be confident that you're getting tickets to the event you want to go to at the best possible price. They've got you covered. I use SeatGeek multiple times per year, concerts. I'm taking the boy to a baseball game next week, the Diamondbacks, as the season's coming to a close. We're going to get in one more game. I got it on my phone. It is super easy. Best of all, our listeners get $20 off their first SeatGeek purchase. You download the SeatGeek app, you enter the promo code Footballers, and that is the promo code Footballers to get $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. SeatGeek, life is an event. We have the tickets.
We want to thank FanDuel for sponsoring today's show. If you're listening to this show, you know something. Fantasy football is happening.
And fun. Very fun.
It's all good right now. And look, you want to enhance the weekend. You want to have a little bit more fun. You got to check out FanDuel. At FanDuel, you get the excitement of researching, building your team each week. Every week, it's a new season, so regardless of the outcome, you get to do it all over again. FanDuel has never been more fun or easy. It's the place to play if you're not a fantasy expert. They have something for everyone, and there are more ways to win than ever before, like their Gridiron Pick'em contest every week. It's a free contest. All you need to do is pick winners, no spreads, and $10,000 is split amongst the top pickers. How's your survivor pool going for FanDuel, Andy?
Yeah. I took the Texans last week. I'm out.
I'm still running.
Yeah.
So hopefully you are still alive as well. And for FanDuel, new users are going to get a $20 bonus when they make their first deposit. Come play with us at FanDuel.com/fantasyfootballers. That's FanDuel.com/fantasyfootballers.
The 2-0 Broncos travel to Baltimore to take on the 1-1 Ravens. The Ravens are a difficult team to rank as well. They played Buffalo. You're distorting all of the statistics when you play Buffalo this year if you've only played 2 games. Now the Ravens are 5.5-point home favorites, 44-point over-under, and lots of question marks through both of these lineups. Confidence levels, look, we're going to talk through Phillip Lindsay, Royce Freeman, John Brown, Alex Collins. Like there aren't a lot of must-start players on either of these teams. There's a lot of maybe starts. So what do you think the biggest storyline is? Because both of these teams have defenses that are historically known as great defenses, and both seem like they're more – maybe they're good. Maybe they're not great. So maybe there's some value there.
Yeah, I think the biggest question for most people out there is Alex Collins. He's been a disappointment so far. You've got the vulture of Javorius Buck Allen taking the touchdown, away last week. I am okay starting Alex Collins in this matchup. I've got him as an RB2 in the 20s, so he's certainly not a guy that I think like you said, he's not a have to start, but I would probably start him. He is at home in a favored matchup. That's usually good. Alex Collins has played well at home. I think I would give my recommendation to start him against most other players. I would start Alex Collins over Dion Lewis this week. I would start Alex Collins over James White this week. I would start Alex Collins over Phillip Lindsay in this same game. But it's not a vote of Alex Collins is a must start, and I would start Giovani Bernard over Alex Collins. So that's kind of where I see him slotting in.
They're at home, they're favorites. So there is an opportunity there for them to need to be running the ball, at least according to what Vegas thinks is going to happen. Now, the Broncos go on the road. Case Keenum, 14 completions of 20-plus yards this season. He has weapons, right? Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, and Cortland Sutton. Only one reception last week from Sutton, but again,
so close.
Kind
to
of.
Yeah.
I believe that was a touchdown taken away from Sutton last week.
So what do we do with Case Keenum on the road here? Is this just hands off? I mean, you don't want to go into Baltimore and worry about Case Keenum?
Correct. Yeah. He certainly could come through. This is not a doubt. It's playing the probability of Keenum on the road. We saw the red rifle just explode. Andy Dalton crushed the Ravens, was dominant for fantasy purposes. I'm just not sure. I don't have that level of confidence.
Does that translate to Thomas and Sanders, Jason?
Yes, it does. I moved Emmanuel Sanders significantly down my rankings. You saw him hobbled a little bit last week. You saw Demaryius Thomas hobbled a little bit last week. If those guys are banged up against the Ravens in Baltimore, that does not bode well. So far this season, the Ravens have been all right. They didn't really show up last week. I think they thought they were way better than they were based on week 1 at Baltimore. But you can't. We've been saying this. You can't just look at this season. If you look at last year, the Ravens, they were the second most difficult team to play for quarterbacks and wide receivers. They locked down. I mean that is kind of what they do. So I'm not high on the Denver passing attack.
Let's talk for a minute about a player that I think is going to be at the top of our start-sit tool most asked questions this week, which is Phillip Lindsay. People want to know, can they play him? Phillip Lindsay has rushed for 99 yards up the middle this season. That is the most in the NFL. So for those of you that are looking at Phillip Lindsay, that stature, what he's built like, you need to compare him more to Dion Lewis than you do a guy like Chris Thompson. He is not all on the outside. He is not all about receptions. They're using him as a running back.
as a power back even. I mean, they
They're
get down
using
in
the
the
running
5,
back.
and they're like, bring in the little guy.
Well, I mean, there are players like that. Deion
Right.
Lewis is the easiest comp, but, I mean, Darren Sproles he's had opportunities through his career to run up the middle.
Danny Woodhead was used a lot on the
Yes.
goal line.
Yes, he was.
15 for 71 in week 1, 14 for 107 in week 2. Only 3 receptions on the year, so you're treating him like a regular running back. Do you play him over a guy like Deion Lewis this week who has to face Jacksonville? Who would you start in that situation?
Wow.
I've got Deion Lewis a little bit ahead of Phillip Lindsay. Phillip Lindsay was my pump the brakes this week, and that's not to say you cannot play him. Phillip Lindsay, he's in the 20s for my ranking. I worry being in Baltimore. I worry about him being on the road for the first time in his NFL career. I went back, I watched the film, and I'm a Phillip Lindsay believer. He's a good player. He's not, he's not just running through wide open holes and anybody could do it. He's breaking tackles. He's shifty. So I'm not saying you have to bench him, but I'm not excited about this matchup. The only guy that I think, I look at in this game and I would say, I would really like to take a shot because everybody here in both sides of this game is just I feel like is a one eye closed dart throw. Like you could see the board, but your depth perception's a little off.
It's like, who's playing darts closing one of their eyes?
I'm
too good at darts.
Isn't that how you aim?
John Brown.
Don't people aim a lot with one eye?
Not when you're playing darts.
Really?
I can see that.
When you have a sight or a scope, yes, you go.
You
with
don't
one
use
eye.
a scope when you play
I
darts?
always use a scope. All I see is the bullseye. I put the scope and then it's just all red.
Maybe they do.
I use
Now
a
I'm
monocle, but
questioning.
it's painted black.
I believe that's called an eye patch.
That's what I do. I use an eye patch.
I go buy a real expensive monocle, then I spray paint it black.
Well, because you want to look. I want to be sophisticated. A regular eye patch, that's more pirate.
I mean,
Gotcha.
yeah. Put it this way: I took the under.
Never seen a pirate with a monocle, have you?
That's
No,
an excellent point.
And you never want to be mistaken as a pirate.
It's
Just
true.
speaking from experience.
This is a game in general with a little bit of light rain, 2 good defenses, 2 mediocre offenses. I'm taking the under, and if I can look elsewhere for most of these players, that's
Crabtree or John Brown?
John Brown.
I feel like we've been on this matchup for long enough, but John Brown has to be talked about.
That's why I asked the question, Mike.
19.1 yards per. That's his average depth of target. The man is just bathing in air yards, and he's getting target volume now. Last week it was a little bit different when he had the 10 targets because they had to come back. The Ravens were scrambling, but week 1 had 4 targets, has a touchdown both weeks. Is John Brown a locked and loaded wide receiver 3?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
The Giants take on the Texans in the battle of the winless, terrified fan bases. The Giants, look, it's been a struggle keeping Eli Manning upright so far this year. The Texans have not picked up where they left off with Deshaun Watson. He had a good fantasy week last week, and I actually really like Deshaun Watson this week because the Giants are just a sieve on defense, or I expect them to be this week on the road. So what are the big storylines in this game? What are you guys looking for? I mean, you're not – are you afraid of Beckham at all?
No.
Not just in this game, but a year long on the basis that, look, this team may struggle on offense?
He's my number 1 target. I mean, one of the more common
Your number 1
questions-
trade target?
Yes. One of the
okay.
more common questions we get every week is like, who would you try to trade for right now? And my answer this week is Odell Beckham. He hasn't popped. People are worried about the offense. But he's a guy that doesn't need some great offense. Like he can
He is
manufacture
the great offense
himself. He needs a slant route that he takes to the house. So yeah, I'm not worried about Odell. Nobody should be sitting him in any matchup.
Evan Engram.
Evan Engram is. I mean,
He's a must start.
yeah. What? How many tight ends are you starting over Evan Engram? 4?
Yeah, maybe 4 or 5.
You're obviously playing Saquon, and you're not thinking about anybody else on New York. So on the
No.
Houston side, look, last year the Giants gave up the most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks in the league. Love Deshaun Watson this week.
It should be an excellent bounce back.
Deshaun Watson with Will Fuller is different than Deshaun Watson without him.
That is correct.
So I really like the opportunity there. Lamar Miller has been solid, if not spectacular.
He's just
been Lamar.
He's given you Lamar.
Hey, I think this is a really good week. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but the matchup last year and so far what we've seen from the Giants this year, they're not able to stop the run or anything. I took the over in this game. Vegas does not expect a lot of points scored here, but I actually think that this game could be a surprising fantasy relevant game. Two teams that desperately need a victory with one of the defenses does not look good and the other is not looked up to the expectation, right? Everyone's waiting for the Texans to figure it out, and so far they haven't done so, to the point where their head coach is Vegas's odds-on favorite to be the first coach fired this year, Bill O'Brien.
That's the interesting thing. We figured it'd be Hugh, but it wasn't.
Oh, no, not after that tie.
That's right.
Woo, best
Jason.
start.
Best start in years for the –
Let's talk Titans and Jags. The Titans got the win last week over the aforementioned Texans. Now they travel to Jacksonville. Good luck taking on the 2-0 Jaguars. They don't know if they're going to have Mariota or not.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's weird.
It's just weird. What is happening? What is going on
From
with
what I
Mariota?
understand with his elbow is he had an injury that caused there to be problems with the nerve endings. So getting feeling back, making every throw has been a struggle for him. And that's
Gotcha.
When he got out on the field before the game this past week, he couldn't make every throw. They made the determination to go with Gabbert. And as a result, look, they still pulled out the win over Houston.
Do you think his elbow is fine, but they're actually watching his throws now and going, no, he can't make these throws?
So there's got to be something wrong with the elbow.
Clearly the elbow. No, my elbow's fine. No, look at these throws. I mean, I was all on Marcus Mariota this offseason, looking at his rushing ability, the new offense, everything. But even starting in preseason, he just hasn't been that great. So this is
but it hurts our expectations for Corey Davis. It hurts the ability for Jonnu Smith to break out. If you're not running your offense and building it around Blaine Gabbert the way you do Marcus Mariota. So do you have – I mean, you mentioned several guys you'd play over Deion Lewis. We're not bullish about Derrick Henry. And then Corey Davis, look, I'm playing a lot of players over Corey Davis this week. He's a bench in both of my leagues because I have no confidence in Corey Davis going up against Jalen Ramsey and company in Jacksonville.
There is not a
It's like a must-bench everybody.
There is not a single pass catcher that you can play. You should bench. I don't care who else you have. Find someone on waivers. I'm not playing a single receiving option at all from Tennessee. Derrick Henry, Deion Lewis, you might need to start him. It's not a great matchup. It's not the worst. I would prefer to play others. You might need to because they're a running back and the depth is not there this season. So it's pretty simple. Bench your Titans if you can, and if it's a receiver, you can because you could find someone on waivers that are better than this matchup.
Deion Lewis is the only Titan I'm playing this week.
On the Jacksonville side, Blake Bortles has averaged over 20 fantasy points per game at home in his career. He's at home against the Tennessee Titans this week after a 4-touchdown week last week. You got to feel good about Bortles this week.
Yeah.
But how good? How good do you feel about?
Right. I feel pretty confident about him. I believe that he will come through with a solid fantasy day. The biggest question to me is Leonard Fournette. What's going on with his health? The team, they play different. I don't know why it seems like when they restrict Bortles far more when Fournette.
Oh, I get it.
But you've seen what happens when you unleash Bortles. Good things happen.
Sometimes.
You've seen both sides of unleashing Bortles, and they would prefer to have complete control, slow the game down, run out the clock, win with their unbelievable defense, and run the ball. That's their preference. If I was their head coach, and I'm all about throwing the ball, the efficiency of passing, I would still choose that method because I think it gives me a higher probability to win with that defense than unleashing Bortles. But I agree with you. The health of Leonard Fournette is the difference in Bortles. Because if Fournette plays this week, then I don't think Bortles is a guy you want a piece of. You can probably find a quarterback that's going to be higher. They're going to slow the game down and take the passing out of his hands.
I tend to think that's true, and you probably got 12 guys, 12 to 15 guys you can start over Bortles with more assurance of the game script. I don't know how Tennessee scores in this game, and
I do not either.
That's the real problem there. Where last week you had even with Jacksonville out to a lead, you had the threat of Tom Brady coming back in that game. That threat is probably gone, and this defense could score against Blaine Gabbert if he happens to be out there.
True.
And all of a sudden you end up, you run a touchdown in, and you get a defensive score, and then what? Is it over under 10 passing attempts for Bortles the rest of the game? Maybe that's the concern.
So how do you feel about the Jacksonville wide receivers of Keelan Cole?
Yeah, I mean, that's based on your options. I mean, in my dynasty league, I'm choosing to play Marvin Jones, Matt Breida, Corey Clement, all over Keelan Cole. Like, he's on my bench this week, not because I don't think you can start him. Like, there's an opportunity there, and if you have to pick a player to be that passing touchdown guy, I mean, Cole's got as good a chance as anybody. But it's not going to be a ceiling game. It's going to be a floor game for Jacksonville.
I agree, but again, if Fournette does hold out another week, then I feel much more confident in – I mean, Bortles was my streamer. I think you can play him off of waivers, and that would help Keelan Cole if Fournette is out of the game.
Update from earlier, Gio is practicing now, and we're heading into that Bengals-Panthers matchup. So let's talk about the 2-0 Cincinnati Bengals taking on the 1-1 Carolina Panthers in Carolina, 44-point over-under. Panthers are 3-point favorites. Impressive week for Andy Dalton last week. I don't think people expected that kind of a performance.
No. If you did, congratulations on being Andy Dalton's #1 fan.
Andy Dalton and Blake Bortles are very similar in respect to their perception, right? You get fantasy production from them from time to time, maybe more often than not, but
it's always shocking.
It's always you're always surprised. Never expected. But what do you expect in this matchup? Look, the Panthers, they pulled out a win in week 1. They lost last week to Atlanta. It's been a wild ride there, but they did get DJ Moore involved last week.
With one
big
reception?
touchdown, and they talked about involving him more in the offense. How do we feel about this game? What are the big storylines? Gio Bernard obviously is going to get an opportunity here, and you guys are all starting.
Yeah,
Yes.
Gio Bernard last year, there were 5 games. He had 15 or more touches in those contests. He averaged over 16 PPR points a game, and I believe that he will get the bulk of the work.
Yeah,
Mark Walton has been very disappointing. I would say there's a lot of redraft players who are listening to the show who don't even know who Mark Walton is because he's more of a dynasty name. You know who he is, but he's been incredibly disappointing. And just historically speaking, I believe they'll go with Gio.
Yeah, that's why I believe Gio will have vast opportunity this game is because we've kind of seen what happens when someone goes down, and they're fine riding Gio for a week or two, and he's always proven successful.
For what it's worth, Lewis did talk to Ross Tucker on SiriusXM, said that it will be Gio and Mark Walton shouldering the load, and we have not seen Walton in a regular season game yet. He is a rookie. He's highly acclaimed and had a bad preseason. That's where we're at with Walton.
Yeah, and certainly Gio's not going to get 100%. Nobody does on any roster, not Todd Gurley or David Johnson or Zeke, but I still think his opportunity makes him a must-start. Obviously, you have to start Christian McCaffrey, and you have to stay in the flames with Cam Newton. He's on pace for his most rushing attempts of his career. He's had over 100 yards both games. I mean, he's just been awesome and needed. His offensive line.
That's 100 total, by the way.
Yes,
not in each game.
Sorry,
yeah.
and his offensive line has been so wrecked that it's kind of for fantasy, certainly not good news for the Panthers if you're a Panthers fan, but for fantasy, it's making Christian McCaffrey become the clear-cut number one target in the offense without Greg Olsen, and it's making Cam Newton run and run and run. So this is great news. You have to have those guys locked and loaded, but I'm not really digging Funchess or DJ Moore. You don't know where. You don't even know who.
What about you probably don't want to start him this week, but are you considering picking up and holding on to Ian Thomas, tight end for the Panthers, seeing what goes on? I know he came through with really nothing for fantasy to speak of, but he did have 2 targets inside the red zone. Last week he played on 94% of Carolina's snaps.
And the Bengals have been torched so far on this season at tight end, so I
Pass.
I get the thing, but I agree with Andy. Pass.
Okay.
I'm not playing that game.
He's one of those show me first, then I'll sign you. Not the other way around. Not with all the other opportunities to get guys on the waiver wire. McCaffrey had the 14 receptions last week, but he was in the single-digit carry count, which is kind of unfortunate. But it's nice that he's game script proof, obviously, with the reception totals. You know, you're starting A.J. Green. What do you think about Tyler Boyd? He had a very impressive game last week. He looked like, the Quincy Enunwa to A.J. Green's Robbie Anderson. You know, he was the target leader on the team, a possession type of player. I thought Andy Dalton showed a lot of confidence in Tyler Boyd in that game.
Yeah, he's the number 2 receiver. And if you're in a full PPR, I think he is a flex-worthy option.
18 fantasy points, 6 for 91 and a touchdown. John Ross has not emerged.
No,
is the other way of saying that.
No, I'm interested to have Boyd on my bench, but I don't know that I'm ready to throw him in yet.
Sure.
I mean the Panthers, they've been stout so far against fantasy wide receivers, so I think there's other options that I'm looking at.
One more matchup, then starts of the week, and we'll get the rest of the matchups in tomorrow's show. The 49ers at 1-1 take on the Chiefs at Arrowhead. The Chiefs are 6.5-point favorites. 56-point over-under.
Woo!
Wow. I tried to find a way to make this my almost upset.
It's impossible.
And I couldn't. So I'm not. The Chiefs are going to win. I'll look up this tweet. You guys start talking about the matchup. There was a tweet by Evan Silva yesterday talking about the fact that the Chiefs still have meat on the bone. And speaking of the offense, and I'll find that tweet, but this is going to be another opportunity for you to roll out Patrick Mahomes with great confidence. What are the big storylines from this game? I mean, are you starting Sammy Watkins after the impressive performance last week?
Yes.
Yeah. In a game with a 56-point over-under where Jimmy Garoppolo should be able to come down and score on the Chiefs, this is the type of game where anybody that could be involved, you want them in your lineup.
Here's what Evan Silva tweeted yesterday. Mahomes missed Watkins on a long TD bomb in week 2. Missed Kelsey for a 27-yard touchdown on a wheel route. Kareem Hunt has 1 target through 2 games.
Yeah.
Pat Mahomes has 3 starts so far. They're all on the road. Now he's at home. And Kansas City has yet to play from behind in a game at all.
That's
so when you talk about a baseline for an offense right now, wow.
See, this is the one thing I will say. Andy Reid, when you've got a coach that's coached this long, you can get an idea for his how he utilizes his personnel and his players in certain ways. One thing we've seen is that Tyreek Hill surprisingly has more success on the road than at home. Part of that is not, he's great in front of other crowds. It's game design, right? There's 4 more rushing attempts per game so far in Kareem Hunt's early career at home than on the road. So I think this is a great Kareem Hunt game. I mean, nobody's benching Tyreek Hill, but I don't expect him to have one of his insane blow-up games, partly because this is the first freaking week of the season that in one of my main leagues I'm not playing against the Pat Mahomes Tyreek Hill stack.
That you know of.
Yeah, I know. You guys are going to trade
making moves.
I'm going to make a way to get somebody on your opposition quick. But look, the Chiefs' defense is atrocious metric-wise this year. 32nd against quarterbacks, 29th against running backs, 29th against wide receivers, 31st against tight ends. Now they're scorching people. but I like 49ers in this game. I like them a lot. We're going to talk about them in a minute.
Ooh. So Marquise Goodwin returned to limited action on Wednesday.
Yeah, how do you feel about him? There's so much excitement before the year. We haven't got to see him. He goosed you in week 1 because of the injury. Now,
if he plays, I will put him right back in my starting lineup.
I'm fine starting Goodwin. I'm 100% fine starting Garcon.
Kittle?
Kittle, absolutely.
Kittle's a must start until otherwise noted. If Goodwin can't play, what's your Dante Pettis level of excitement, Jason?
I'm still there. I mean, I realize he had a down week last week, but in this type of a matchup against a really bad defense with a high over-under, you're always playing probabilities, and so that doesn't mean you're always going to hit. So last week's advice was, that he was, if Goodwin was out, that he was a startable asset, I don't think was inherently wrong just because it did not come to fruition. I mean, this is the NFL. If people could predict everything that's going to happen,
it's very difficult with Pettis because he only had 2 targets last week, but he played on more snaps than any other wide receiver on the 49er offense. So I think it was a bit of just the wrong, a perfect storm of suck.
Yeah,
for Pettis. But there is opportunity this week. I think he's a dart throw play though.
Right.
Like, I'd much rather play Kenny Golladay than Dante Pettis, even with Goodwin out.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Oh, wait, even with Goodwin out?
Yeah. I'd rather play the Golladay side.
Okay.
You guys got to.
Do you?
Galladay's a must start. Kenny G is so smooth.
Kenny G is
Can Pettis do this?
No.
He's not classically trained.
He's certainly not smooth.
I've heard him. He's on the recorder like.
Hard cross buns.
That's Pettis?
Yeah.
All right.
Show me something, Pettis.
Everyone starts there, though, Mike.
It's true.
On hot cross buns?
Yes.
That's where Beethoven
That's
started.
where I ended. That's where I ended. that was the end of my musical training. My goodness. We talked about on the Spitballers podcast an inanimate object you could get rid of from the world. I did not think about recorders.
The recorder should have been.
The recorder would have
list.
been. I mean, Mike, you said you'd get rid of corners, which I still can't quite comprehend mentally.
I stand by it.
That's a Neil deGrasse Tyson type of situation.
Now, would that have included cornerbacks then?
Ooh.
Are they gone? No, they're animate. Moving along.
Starts of the week.
All right, my start of the week at the quarterback position is Deshaun Watson. I want to give you that little pat on the butt to start Deshaun Watson this week.
A lot of people worried.
Great opportunity against New York. Deshaun Watson is chucking it. He's chucking it deep. He's gained 73.3% of his total passing yards through the air. That is the highest of all qualified quarterbacks in the league. I'm calling him Launchpad. I mean, he's launching it. And when you have Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins as part of that deep threat offense, I love it. And he's still 3rd in the league in rushing yardage at the quarterback position. He put up a great fantasy game last week, albeit it took him a while. I think this is just start him. Start him, you're fine.
My start of the week this week is Matt Ryan. He's one of those guys that you're not always sure whether you want to start him, and you're not. This is not chasing last week's points. He had a phenomenal game last week, but this is more about the matchup that I think the New Orleans Saints and the Falcons, I believe that they will take the over. I think they're going to score a lot of points back and forth in this game, and it's the weapons. When you're at home and you have Calvin Ridley, new first-round pick, you have Mohamed Sanu, you've got Coleman who could catch the ball, and of course Julio, who usually torches the Saints, is saying I think you're going to be making a mistake if you're most of the people with Matt Ryan, they drafted him late, so they are usually debating between 2 later round quarterbacks, and I'm taking Matt Ryan in that situation.
I'm taking the handsome one, Jimmy Garoppolo. The matchup is fantastic. The San Francisco defense has given up 27 points, 24 points, and now they're playing Kansas City with an absolutely obscene over-under, and I believe that Jimmy Garoppolo can keep pace against this Kansas City Chiefs defense, so I love him this week.
I love him as well. On my tight end start of the week, we'll go into the tight ends now. It's George Kittle against Kansas City for all the reasons that Mike just brought up.
Yeah.
And look, Jesse James is the number 1 tight end in fantasy football. He just dropped 138 and a touchdown. Who did he do it against? Kansas City. He's been targeted 13 times this season. That's 6th most among tight ends. I don't read much into last week's performance in terms of any type of lack of excitement for George Kittle. They're going to need to throw the ball, and Kittle's going to do work this week.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with the rules around here. Rule 86, Jordan Reed has been on the field. He's been healthy, and you must start him. There are very few tight ends with the ability that he has. There are very few tight ends so far on this season that have, that have even proven that they can be relied on at all. But he is Alex Smith's number 1 target.
It's my number 1 guy.
He's playing at home against Green Bay. I think, there's 3
nuts.
guys. There are 3 players that I'm willing to start over Jordan Reed this week, and that's the 3 obvious: Gronk, Ertz, and Kelsey.
Wow, so you got Reed up at number 4, huh?
I sure do.
You'd play him over Jimmy?
I would play him over Jimmy in the same game.
Ooh. Wow.
Ooh, I like it.
Spicy.
All right, I'm taking a risk here at the tight end position. I'm staying in the flames.
Wow.
With the outlaw Jesse James. This has some absolute risk to it, but Andy brought it up. He is the number 1 tight end right now in fantasy, and that's with cause. Now, the
3 for 60 in week 1 against Cleveland, 5 for 138 and a touchdown against Kansas City.
I'm not expecting 5 for 138 and a touchdown
Ever again in his career.
but I'm buying into the matchup. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The beard is magical. The beard dust is just dropping points. And I'm talking, of course, about Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I strongly believe that Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to continue his performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. And so facto, Pittsburgh Steelers are going to have to put up points. And I think that Jesse James is a part of the attack right now.
It's interesting because I feel like maybe I've discovered something about you, Mike.
What's that?
You love platoon tight ends. You love them when they're sharing. I mean, my biggest concern with Jesse James moving forward is just that Vance McDonald ran the same amount of snaps
and he was
and
targeted.
routes.
But I'm trying to give.
You could end up with your Vance around your ankles here.
It's certainly possible, but I'm trying to help people find a tight end from the waiver wire that they can pick up and play.
He's still on the waiver wire in our league. So
The number 1 tight end.
yeah. What, number 2 is probably Disley, right?
I think so.
Jesse James and Will Disley.
I believe so.
All right, let's jump into the wide receiver position. I'm going with Brandin Cooks. Must start of the week, blow it up, top 5 guy, Brandin Cooks. 4th most receiving yards in the NFL right now, just trailing Deshaun Jackson, Michael Thomas, and Tyreek Hill. Brandin Cooks is everything that Sean McVay, offensive genius and mastermind, has wanted from that position. It's almost an indictment on Sammy Watkins to see how involved Brandin Cooks has been so soon in that offense. And look, I think it's going to be wheels up. Let's go. Brandin Cooks. Must start.
And I'm sticking with what got me here, the guy that I love. And yes, he's obvious because he's like the 7th wide receiver so far on the season. But if I had him last year, I can't delete his name out of my starts of the week. JuJu Smith-Schuster.
You've been grandfathered in.
I'm grandfathered in. He's my start of the year. Next week,
of the year.
He'll be my start of the week, and then I'll have to give you another wide receiver because he's just never getting out of this spot.
My goodness.
He is great. He's on pace for 1,920 yards and 144 receptions. This is like
that makes me wonder what the pace of Cooks, Djax, Thomas, and Hill is because
Right.
JuJu wasn't one of those 4.
No, I know. It's one of those things where, like you said, Mike, and what I brought up at the very beginning of the show, Fitzmagic appears to be legit right now. The Steelers' defense is not great so far this season, like we saw the second half of last season. They're going to have to put points up, and yes, the squeaky wheel Antonio Brown will have a better game, but you just stay in the fire that JuJu has created.
Mike?
I'm going with Will Fuller. I love Deshaun Watson this week, so I want to, I'm going to grab an arm. I'm going to grab a leg. I'm just going to get an extension from Deshaun Watson. And this week I'm going to go with Will Fuller. He was my rising star. It's time to accept the facts that Will Fuller, who was a first-round pick, he still has the taste of his first year where he was really letting people down. And because of that, we've not accepted that Will Fuller is just a good wide receiver and is a perfect match.
8 for 113 for a touchdown last week.
Very involved. In games with Deshaun Watson. Off the top of my head, I think it was his lowest finish was wide receiver 17. He gets it done. The big play is a huge threat, and if you're going to get target volume on top of being a big play threat, I love Will Fuller this week, and I love him moving forward throughout the season.
He's addicted to the end zone.
Yes.
That's what he is. Now, you do need to monitor. He is, I think, technically marked as a limited participant with the hamstring injury.
He's always banged up.
Easing into this week. I'm going to go with my running back start of the week now, Matt Breida against Kansas City. I'm going to give him credit, that leading rusher in the NFL. But look, to me, this is a snap count percentage decision. Kansas City is lighting the world on fire. I believe that Jimmy Handsome and company are on the way back in this game. They're going to be fighting with garbage time availability. You've seen what happens at the end of these games, too. If they're down, these running backs are getting targets. And Matt Breida has been a really good player so far this year, albeit limited total carries. But I think this is a good game to start Matt Breida. I want to give people confidence to put him in their flex, to put him in that position where, you got him late, you got him off a waiver wire, you're making a decision between him and Keelan Cole or him and, Marvin Jones or something like that. I would play Breida.
Yeah, and my start of the week is Lamar Miller. I want to give
how'd that feel coming out of your mouth?
It felt great because
welcome back, old friend.
Yes, I missed you, Lamar. Look, I looked at a lot of trades this last week, trades that have gone down, trade requests of I've been offered this or I'm thinking about offering that, and the one thing that has really stood out to me is how nobody wants Lamar Miller. The people that have him are fine to get rid of him. He would be another trade target because he's been fine. He's on the field. He's on the field 75% of snaps, which is fantastic for a running back. He's the clear lead guy there. I think this offense is going to start clicking, especially now with Will Fuller back. The New York Giants.
He's Miller fine.
The New York Giants are not a good defense, and Miller's going to be okay. So I'm saying, start him. He's probably been on your bench or near it or been in consideration of being benched. He's a top 15 running back this week against the Giants.
Mike?
My running back start, I'm calling the shot of buying into the news that Jay Ajayi is going to miss this weekend. So Corey Clement against the Indianapolis Colts.
Oh.
The matchup is delightful. Corey Clement is a more than capable running back. You get the return of Carson Wentz, a huge upgrade for that offense as a whole. I'm very excited to play Clement this week.
All right, those were the starts of the week, and it's time for the main event.
Jason Moore's ironclad, locked and loaded, 100% guaranteed boom boom kicker of the week.
Usher in a new year like you were Carson Daly. With the Vikings' newest player, kicker Dan Bailey.
Going MTV.
No, going NBC. Come on.
Carson Daly's mainstream now on the New Year's.
Yeah, that he goes into it. It's like a vampire.
Right.
He just goes away for 364 days of the year.
Have you thought about releasing just
Is that what vampires do?
They go away for 30 days?
Why not like a bear that hibernates? Vampires just disappear in the day.
Yes, it's true.
Anyway, sorry. Had to correct him on his
Daly
vampire knowledge.
Burrows himself underground until the next New Year. Is that what we're getting at?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Dan Bailey's the pick here.
Dan Bailey is – I would not use Carson Daly as a kicker. But, look, Dan Bailey, his groin is healed. He's literally the second most accurate kicker in NFL history. He was cut from the Cowboys for money reasons, and he's signed – Brooks is shaking his head. It's so sad because he's a Cowboys fan, and you got rid of Dan Bailey, who I'm pretty sure the Cowboys could have used him these first 2 weeks. and the Vikings have a great offense. Pick them up.
Want to remind you, football season is underway, and we encourage you to check out FanDuel. Playing on FanDuel has never been more fun or easy. It's the place to play if you're not a fantasy expert. Check out the Gridiron Pick'em game. It's easy. Everyone can get in on this, and new users are going to get a $20 bonus when they make their first deposit on FanDuel. Come play with us at FanDuel.com/fantasyfootballers. That's FanDuel.com/fantasyfootballers.
That is it for today's episode of the show. Tomorrow we'll do in and out, more of the matchups. Excited for week 3, guys?
You want to play some daily? Check out draft.com/ballers.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.